5 empty seats stared back at me like open mouths. While other grads waved to cheering families, I stood there with honor cords on my shoulders and no one to clap. Then my phone lit up, 36 missed calls from my sister, a text from my mom, "We need to talk. Urgent." I didn't know it yet, but my little sister had just hijacked my graduation with one fake message. And I was about to turn her perfect engagement into the one event she'd never forget. If you've ever felt invisible in your own family, talked over, pushed aside, forgotten, this one's for you. Hit like, tap subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Today you'll hear how I went from the forgotten middle child to the woman who rewrote the narrative, and made the truth impossible to ignore. My name is Alicia. I'm 23, a psychology grad with honor cords that felt heavier than my cap that day, not because of their weight, but because of what they represented: years of lost sleep, 2 jobs at once, and a very quiet kind of hope. The stage lights were hot and white. They washed the crowd into a blur of color, a watercolor of faces and flowers and camera flashes. I had reserved 5 seats: a mom, dad, my little brother Dylan, my sister Sarah, and Grandma Rose. The ushers had put a card on the row with my name bolded, like a promise. When I took the podium as the student speaker, those 5 seats were still empty. The card lay there like a label on a gift no one bothered to open. I know the exact second denial melted into understanding. It wasn't when I finished my speech. It wasn't even when I crossed the stage, Alicia Marie Thompson, Bachelor of Science, summa cum laude, and shook the dean's hand with a practiced smile that felt glued on. It was after, on the lawn, where alumni booths flapped like sails and bouquets rustled against gowns. I looked down at my buzzing phone and saw a familiar grid of squares, photos from Sarah's Instagram story. The timestamp, right during my ceremony. In one video, Dad, my meticulous, punctual father, was flipping burgers with a spatula like a metronome. Mom was ladling her famous potato salad into a blue bowl I could smell even through the screen. Dylan was throwing a frisbee. Sarah, the sun itself, was centered in every frame. And then, buzz. "We need to talk urgently," from Mom. 36 missed calls from Sarah. A drip of dread crawled down my neck. That word, urgent, arrived late. It should have shown up when I was on stage. It should have sat in those 5 seats. Olivia, my roommate, my friend, my unofficial crisis counselor, tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. "They're missing it," she said softly, already reading my face. "But we're not. I'm here. My parents are here. Smile for us." We took photos, the kind where you smile with your eyes because you can't trust your mouth. At lunch, Olivia's parents toasted me with lemonade that stung in my throat. Strangers in the next booth clapped when they heard I'd been the speaker. Somewhere in the raised voices of that restaurant I found a thread of steady breathing. I held it like a lifeline. Back at our apartment, the phone would not stop. Mom. Dad. Sarah. Dylan. The names jumped and repeated like a bad song on loop. The text stacked up: "Call me now, urgent, involves you directly." I put the phone face down and let silence pool on the coffee table. "They can wait," Olivia said, that simple and radical. For 40 minutes I was allowed to be celebrated, no seen. I showered the stage lights off my skin, scrubbed at the outline of disappointment like it could rinse away. But here is the truth about growing up in a family like mine: urgency has a particular tone. It's a siren you can't unhear, even when logic says it's just a car alarm misfiring again. I grabbed my keys. "I need to go," I told Olivia. "If something really is wrong, I won't sleep tonight." She argued gently, then relented. "If you get too upset, pull over. And text me when you get there." I mean it. The drive home is 3 hours of muscle memory. My hands knew when to change lanes before my head decided. On the highway, the sky bled into a late afternoon bruise. I rehearsed possible emergencies like scripts: an accident, Grandma Rose's heart, a house fire. Each scenario pushed air from my lungs, then puffed it back. It was the old dance: fear, hope, fear, hope. Behind each was a quieter rhythm: "Please tell me you tried to come." Please tell me you tried. The street of my childhood home curled like a question mark. Every driveway was a row of chrome smiles. I could hear music from the backyard, upbeat, summery, loud. Laughter carried on the kind of breeze that smells like smoke and sugar. Urgent, I mouthed. I rang the front door like a guest. I didn't use my key. Dylan opened it, teenager slouch and baby face colliding with edges harder than the last time I'd seen him. He blinked like he'd seen a ghost or a test he'd forgotten to study for. Alicia, you're here. Apparently there's an emergency, I said, the word crisp against my tongue. He stepped onto the porch and let the door fall mostly closed behind him. His pupils flicked side to side. Sarah says you told everyone the graduation was next weekend. She's been freaking out because she just realized it was today. She called you like, 1,000,000 times. There is a sound the brain makes when something replaces something else. Smooth and invisible as a magician's trick. For a breath, I heard nothing at all. Then my own voice, that is a lie. My throat thickened on lie, not because the word was hard to say, but because it was so easy. I reminded everyone for months. I sent times. I reserved seats. I didn't add, I carried hope like a crystal plate and you set hamburgers on it. Mom appeared in the hall. Relief crossed her face first, then a flinch, then a pinched something, guilt, maybe. Thank God. Honey, there's been a terrible misunder. Then it will be easy to clear up, I said. Calm, measured, therapist voice. The voice I used with freshman residents the year I was an RA, when they cried over roommates and first loves. Where's Sarah? Inside, Mom said, smoothing her shirt like the fabric might iron the moment flat. In the living room, some people were not family, balanced on furniture like they'd been told to expect a show. Dad stood with a beer in his hand he didn't seem to know what to do with. The television was paused on the freeze frame of a backyard video. Alicia, Dad said, turning that exact, precise way he always has. The way he turns at depositions and birthdays. We were worried. Were you? I asked, and let the words just sit there a moment, until the silence felt like a glare. Then Sarah walked in, eyeliner smudged to look like tears, hair glossy, nails perfect. She looked beautiful, she always does, and for a second that beauty made me hate myself. Like maybe I was wrong to interrupt all this effortless rightness. You ignored all my calls, she accused, chin up. Her voice had the slight tremble of someone who practices looking delicate. Why would you do that? I didn't blink. Show me the text I supposedly sent. She had it ready, almost too ready, a message that looked like it came from my number. Hey, everyone, graduation moved to next Saturday at 2. Faculty conflict. Sorry for confusion. My stomach dipped, like a fast elevator, then the ground catching me again. I laughed, one small sharp sound. This is not from me. It came from your number, she said, relief flickering in her eyes, like there, I have evidence, therefore the truth. Spoofing apps also show the sender as a number, I said. Where did you get this? What's the app called? She flinched as if I'd flicked water at her. And then Dylan, brave in a way that looked new on him, found his voice. I saw her on a weird app last week. It makes fake texts. She said it was for pranks. The room tilted towards Sarah. She went pale then blotchy, un-Instagram filters creeping up her throat. It wasn't. I mean, she looked at Dad. He had that face he gets before he starts explaining the difference between a mistake and a pattern in court. Except this time he looked at me with it. Alicia, that's a serious accusation, he said, but the edges were duller than usual. It's not an accusation, I said. It's math. Olivia's mom commented on Sarah's story that she was sad to miss my speech today. That's the moment Sarah figured out she'd been caught lying. Not the moment she realized the date. I let my eyes move from one face to the next. You didn't even try to come. The barbecue never started at 4. You started it at 11. We all knew it. Some of us just hoped the lie would feel more comfortable than the truth. Sarah inhaled a dramatic breath. Fine, she snapped, the delicate act discarded like tissue paper. Yes, I sent one text. I didn't think it would be a big deal. We had already planned today and Jason's parents flew in and we were going to, she bit her lip. The pause hung there like a bead of water on glass. Going to what? I asked, even though I already knew. Announce our engagement, she exhaled, and it was like saying abracadabra. The room changed. People murmured. Mom's hands flew to her mouth. Dad's eyes did a bright, startled thing I know too well. Oh good, something we can celebrate instead of this mess. I felt anger like a hot coin under my tongue, but under it was something colder, purer, clarity. No, I said. Not loud. But the sound cut. Mom blinked. Honey? No, I repeated. We are not skipping the part where she deliberately sabotaged my graduation so she could send her herself. We are not wrapping cruelty in confetti and calling it a party. Sarah rolled her eyes so hard I could hear it. It's just a graduation. We can do something next weekend for you. She said just like it was a hair she was brushing from her shoulder. There is a kind of rage that wants to throw the plate. And there is another kind that learns to turn your wrist and place it down so softly no one hears the sound. Mine was the second kind now. I put the plate down. For years, I said evenly. 2 jobs. Perfect GPA. Student speaker. I did all of that alone, and today I did it in an auditorium where 5 seats with my name on them sat empty because you wanted a burger and a spotlight. Dad swallowed. I could see the tendon in his neck jump. Mom reached for me, I stepped back and her hand closed on air. We can talk as a family, Dad said, defaulting to an old script. Meetings. Agenda. Resolution. The way he loves problems is by trying to frame them. But this wasn't a problem. It was a pattern. Framed already by years. A family celebrates each other, I said. A family doesn't lie and then say oops. I turned and walked to the door. The simple act of turning my back felt like a small miracle. Mom called my name and my name sounded like a rattle in her mouth. In the driveway, the air tasted like charcoal. Dylan's sneakers scuffed the concrete when he hurried after me. He looked smaller out here without the house around him. I'm sorry, he said, and it came out flat with sincerity. I knew she was being weird about your date. I just kept going along because it's always easier to go with Sarah than against her. I nodded. I know. He hugged me hard and quick, the way boys who don't hug often hug. When I drove away, he was still standing there, hands in pockets, looking like a question mark too. Back at my apartment, it was past midnight and the city had that softened, secret look it gets at that hour. Olivia was waiting with tea that tasted like citrus and honey. I told her everything. At engagement her eyebrows jumped to her hairline. At spoofing abs she swore, one sharp word that made me laugh even with my eyes burning. When I finished, the quiet we sat in was gentle, not heavy. So, she said, index finger tapping her mug. What now? I'd been turning the answer over with the care you give to a shard of glass. I held it up. It didn't catch the light the way revenge usually does in movies. It looked more like a boundary, carved carefully, designed not to stab but to separate. Now, I said, they don't get to decide the story anymore. She leaned in. Go on. Sarah's power isn't just that my parents adore her, I said. It's that she controls the narrative. She makes a mess then changes the lighting so it looks like a bouquet. I'm done giving her the stage directions. I'm going to put the facts under a light she can't dim. Olivia smiled slowly. You're going to make it undeniable. Yes, I said. My heart rate had slowed. Each beat felt like a step onto solid ground. I started with a habit I learned in research, preserve evidence. I backed up every calendar reminder I'd sent since January, the family group chat screenshots with the exact date and time, the email to my department asking for extra guest vouchers and the confirmation reply, the receipt for the 5 reserved family seats in the marked section. I saved the dean's letter naming me student speaker. I screen recorded Sarah's Instagram story, the timestamp visible in the corner like a watermark no one could argue with. I compiled everything into a folder titled, simply, Timeline. It sat on my desktop like a heartbeat. Then I reached out. I called the graduation coordinator and asked for a simple note on letterhead confirming the ceremony date and my role. She sent it 10 minutes later. I texted Olivia's mom, who'd left that comment on Sarah's story, and asked if she'd be willing to send me a screenshot with the time visible and a brief statement. I was at Alicia's graduation, saw your stories during the ceremony. She sent it with 3 heart emojis and a text, I'm so proud of you. I called Dylan the next morning, not to grill him, but to ask him gently for clarity. If I need you to confirm you saw Sarah using a text spoofing app, would you? There was a pause, then a slow, careful, yeah, I would. I'm tired, Alicia. His voice cracked on my name. I'm tired of the way things are. I told him I loved him. I didn't say thank you because it felt wrong to be grateful he would tell the truth. But I was. Next, I did something I would have considered unthinkable a year ago. I called my carrier. I asked for a detailed log of outgoing messages on my line for the last 2 weeks. They couldn't share content, obviously, but they could confirm I hadn't sent any group texts at the time Sarah's update supposedly went out. The rep's voice was cheerful, unaware of the battlefield he was arming me for. When the log arrived by email that afternoon, it looked like a neat column of timestamps and phone numbers. A silence between 10 a.m. and noon on the day Sarah claimed I'd texted the family. Exactly when I was lining up in my cap and gown. If this sounds clinical, it is. I made it clinical on purpose. Feelings got me overlooked. Facts would not. I didn't want drama, I wanted accuracy. And then I wanted to draw a line with it. Olivia watched me assemble the pieces with the solemn excitement of someone prepping a friend for a marathon. What's step 2? She asked, chin on fist. Step 2 is context, I said. Not to humiliate. To pattern match. To say, this wasn't a one-off. This is how you have treated me for 23 years. My hands were steady now. I made a second folder, pattern. Inside it, I put a scan of the elementary school program where my name had been circled in pen next to piano recital, the one they forgot to attend. An old text chain where I'd sent a photo of my first place science fair ribbon and got a heart emoji from mom 5 hours later under a flood of messages about Dylan's scrimmage. The yearbook page where you can see dad in the bleachers under stadium lights, every game, every season, while my debate tournaments were only ever captured by someone else's parent with a blurry phone. I wasn't hoarding evidence out of spite. I was building a mirror. If they chose to look, they'd see. I didn't sleep much that night, but it wasn't anxiety. It was velocity. In the morning my body felt like a drawn bow. Not jittery, focused. That afternoon, Sarah texted me. We need to talk before the engagement dinner Saturday. No apology. Not a real one. No, can we? Just an assumption, I'd attend, I'd perform. I stared at the message for a long minute. The old Alicia me, 9 months ago, me holding my breath at the edge of every family promise, would have shown up to keep the peace. This version of me typed, I won't be at your engagement dinner. I will, however, be sending mom and dad a clear timeline of what happened and a request for a public correction to our extended family. I expect you to own what you did. No more rewrites. She responded instantly, you're being dramatic. No one cares about your graduation except you. I watched the typing bubble appear again, vanish, then reappear like a nervous twitch. If you send anything, you'll ruin what's left of our relationship. What relationship? I whispered to the empty room, then put my phone down. Olivia looked up from her laptop. She doesn't get to make the terms anymore, she said simply. I nodded. I drafted the email. Subject, graduation, clarification, and family update. It was not a rant. It was a clean list of dates and times with attachments. A paragraph acknowledging that misunderstandings happen and that this was not one. A final sentence: moving forward, I will not be attending events where my achievements are minimized or where lying is used to avoid accountability. I CC'd my parents, Dylan, Grandma Rose, and a handful of relatives who regularly attend family events. I did not CC Sarah's friends. This wasn't about public shaming. It was about a circle that had always looped around her finally bending toward a different center: truth. Before I hit send, I called Grandma Rose. Her voice is a warm room. "My girl," she said. "I saw the video of your speech. You sounded like a person who knows who she is." I told her everything. She made a sound that was half sigh, half cluck. "Your mother is a good woman who thinks love means smoothing every wrinkle. Your father thinks fairness means logic, not feelings. Your sister, well, some flowers grow tall because everyone keeps trimming the others." I smiled with my eyes closed. "I'm going to send a timeline," I said. "I'm not trying to embarrass anyone. I'm trying to set a boundary that can't be talked away." "Send it," she said. "And send me a copy. I'll bring my glasses." I sent it. 20 minutes later my phone rang. "Dad." I let it go to voicemail. Then Mom. Then Dad again. Texts rolled in: "We need to discuss this privately, this is unnecessary, you're making a mountain out of." I muted the conversation. Then my phone buzzed with a new number. Jason's mother. I answered on instinct. Her voice was careful, cultured, with an edge my professors would call clinical concern. "Alicia, I received your email. I'm appalled. I want you to know if our presence added to any pressure for your sister to misrepresent, we regret it. And for what it's worth," her voice lowered to a confiding murmur, "I prefer when people earn their celebrations. It makes them last." I thanked her, hung up, and exhaled a laugh I hadn't expected. Then another call: "Dylan. They're freaking out," he said without preamble. "Mom's crying. Dad's pacing. Sarah's saying you're trying to destroy her engagement." He paused. I told them I'd seen the app. I closed my eyes and let the relief be as big as it wanted. "Thank you," I said, the words landing properly this time. That evening, Mom finally sent a message that didn't try to sidestep. "I'm sorry. I should have confirmed with you. We failed you." It wasn't an admission about the pattern, it was a toe in the pool. I acknowledged it with a simple thank you. Then I put my phone face down and wrote. Not a diary entry. A plan. Because here's the part one haven't told you yet: Sarah's engagement dinner wasn't just dinner. It was at the community center where Mom organizes events, the place with the rented projector and the volunteer pianist and the neighbors who'd known us since we were kids. Sarah had spent all year rehearsing how that room would adore her. She'd planned a slideshow. She'd planned a toast. She'd planned a surprise at the end, Jason down on one knee for the people who hadn't seen it yet. I knew because she'd bragged about it on FaceTime weeks ago, back when I'd chosen to smile and say "oh wow," instead of "you remember my graduation date?" She wanted an audience. She was getting one. Here is what revenge looks like when you are trained to observe patterns and build interventions that heal more than they hurt. You don't slash tires. You don't scream in public. You create a controlled environment where the truth can do its work. I emailed Mrs. Klein, the community center coordinator, someone who had watched me grow from a shy kid to a woman who can fill a stage with calm. "Hi Mrs. Klein, could I stop by Saturday morning? I'd love to borrow the projector for 10 minutes before an event. It's for a personal presentation, simple slides, all my own content. I'll be quick and I'll have it back exactly as I found it." She replied in 10 minutes, "Of course, Alicia. You always return things better than you got them." I smiled. My heart didn't race. It just stepped forward and placed itself where it needed to stand. I built 5 slides. That's all. White background. Black font. No embellishments. Slide 1, May 15th, University graduation, 11 a.m. A photo of the program listing my name as student speaker and the reserved seating card with my name. Slide 2, 10:43 a.m., family reminder, group chat. Screenshots with timestamps. Slide 3, 11:07 to 11:52 a.m., Sarah's live stories. Screen recordings with the visible time in the corner. Dad at the grill. Mom with the potato salad. Sarah with the camera, smiling into the lens while I spoke into a microphone 3 hours away. Slide 4, text allegedly from Alicia, no carrier log. A snippet of the call record showing no outgoing group texts from my line at that time. Slide 5, what I need moving forward. 3 bullet points, 1, public correction to extended family, 2, acknowledgement of harm, 3, no more events where lying is used to avoid accountability. That was all. No adjectives. No you always, you never. Just the kind of truth that doesn't require volume to be heard. If you're wondering, yes, I considered not going. Revenge doesn't always require a stage. Sometimes it demands an absence so loud it echoes. But this wasn't about wrecking a party. It was about one clean moment when the people who had looked away would have to look. And if they still chose to look away after, I could finally stop yelling at closed eyes. Saturday came with that paper-thin blue sky New England gets in late spring. I wore the navy dress I'd bought for my graduation, the one that makes my shoulders look square and my chin look certain. Olivia stood in the doorway with a hand on my elbow. You breathe, you present, you leave, she said, as if she were cueing me from the wings. I nodded. My chest felt roomy. Plenty of air. At the community center, Mrs. Klein showed me the remote and the HDMI cable like she was handing over a delicate instrument. I tested the slides. They clicked forward with soft obedience. The projector's fan hummed. On the last slide, those 3 bullet points sat in their clean black lines. It was strange how gentle they looked, considering what they asked. I thanked her, then walked across the street to the coffee shop and waited. I watched families in their weekend uniforms of denim and light jackets pass by the glass. I thought of Grandma Rose's voice, some flowers grow tall because everyone keeps trimming the others. I decided I was done being trimmed. At 5:30, I crossed back. People were already arriving in clumps. Aunt Maggie's laugh went off like a party favor. Jason's parents stood near the sign-in table, their polite smiles pressed in place. Sarah glowed, literally, I think she'd used highlighter on her collarbones. Mom fussed with the table runners, Dad consulted the printed program like it was a legal brief. I stepped up to Mom first. I won't be staying, I said simply. I need 5 minutes at the start. Then I'll leave. You can call it a toast if that helps. She blinked. 5 minutes? Her eyes slid to Sarah, then back to me. Old reflex. Then she nodded. 5 minutes. Sarah saw me and made a beeline, smile tilted like a blade. You're actually here. She looped her arm through mine like we were close. I stepped sideways and her hand hung in air before she dropped it. 5 minutes, I said. Then you can have the next 5 hours. About what? She asked, eyes narrowing, like she was calculating how to pull the fire alarm with her lashes. I didn't answer. I didn't have to. Her mouth tightened. I stood near the mic, the navy dress hanging clean, my hair tucked back. People hushed. Old neighbors smiled. The pianist's hands floated above the keys, undecided. Dad looked wary in a way I'd never seen on him before, like an attorney who just realized he's underestimated opposing counsel. Mom twisted her rings. Dylan stood off to the side, arms crossed, jaw set. I tapped the mic once. The sound was small. Enough. Thank you, I said. 5 minutes. Then I'll go, and you can celebrate. I clicked the remote. The first slide appeared on the screen behind me. The date. The program. My name. I inhaled once, all the way to the bottom of my lungs, and began. Slide 1 held steady on the wall like a fact you can't blink away. I let the silence do its work. The program with my name under student speaker. The photo of that little white card reserving 5 seats for my family, a promise in cardstock. I could feel people shifting, recognizing the images of a day our family had spun a different story about. I clicked. Slide 2, the family group chat. The timestamps marched down the screen like soldiers, January reminder, March reminder, May 1st with the exact time and address, and the message at 10:43 a.m. the morning of the ceremony. My words were calm, archival. This is the record I kept because I'm the kind of person who anticipates misunderstandings. A few people huffed something soft, not quite a laugh, recognition of that role some of us get assigned at birth, the reliable one, the record keeper. Mom brought a hand to her lips like she could hold the noise inside. Click. Slide 3, Sarah's live stories. The projector fanned heat at my ankles. Dad blurred across the screen flipping burgers. Mom's potato salad, there it was, the blue bowl that never left our kitchen at holidays except for very important occasions. Sarah, ring flashing as she framed herself, centered, always centered, over a backyard that looked like an apology staged too late. In the top corner of each clip, the tiny numbers ticked the time, 11:07, 11:19, 11:42. I didn't look back at the screen, I watched faces. Aunt Maggie's smile fell off her face in a neat, complete way. Jason's mother's eyes narrowed, not at me, but at the moving images that were suddenly a mirror with better lighting. Sarah shifted her weight, I could feel it, even without looking, heels on hall tile, a small scrape that sounded nervous. Click. Slide 4, the carrier log. A blank line at the hour that Alicia changed the date, text allegedly went out. Carriers can't show you content, I said, steady as a metronome, but they can show you what didn't leave my phone. The projector's fan whirred louder. I let a beat pass. Then another. I kept my chin level and didn't fill the room with more words than it needed. The truth was doing fine on its own. Click. Slide 5, 3 bullet points, black on white. Public correction. Acknowledgement of harm. No more events where lying is used to avoid accountability. At the bottom right, smaller text, I will be leaving after this slide so the celebration can continue. I looked at the audience, our people, my people, and found my voice had more space than it used to. That's it, I said. No spectacle. Just the timeline. If you believed I told you the graduation moved, it's because someone wanted you to believe it more than they wanted to check the facts. I'm not here to fight. I'm here to stop standing quietly in rooms where the truth is a guest with no chair. From the side of the room, Sarah's voice sliced in, too bright. Are you serious right now? At my engagement dinner? She laughed then, one high note that rang like a glass about to crack. You're trying to ruin my night, again. A buzz moved through the crowd, curious, uncomfortable. I didn't step toward her or away. No, I said, soft enough to make them move closer in their minds. I'm not here to ruin anything. I'm here to correct a record that cost me something I can't redo. You can celebrate for 5 hours. I needed 5 minutes. Dad cleared his throat, the courtroom tick that usually helped him grip a situation. Alicia, he began, voice pitched to soothe, to settle the audience. We should speak privately. This display isn't necessary. I tilted my head. Calling the truth a display is part of the problem. I didn't look at him long enough to watch the words land. Out of the corner of my eye I saw Dylan shift closer, his stance widening in silent solidarity. Jason's mother lifted a hand, polite but firm. As one of the guests whose presence, I now realize, added pressure to a misrepresentation, her eyes slid to Sarah, then back to me. I appreciate the clarity. Jason's father, quiet and broad-shouldered, nodded once like a judge entering a verdict. The room held, waiting for the next sound to tell it what to feel. Sarah filled it. Fine, she snapped. You want the truth? I sent the text. Happy? Her words ricocheted. Then she reached for the life raft she always finds. But it was a misunderstanding, okay? It was supposed to make it easier. We could have done your graduation next weekend and mine today, and she gestured at herself, a spotlight in human form. This was important. Jason's parents are here. Everyone is here. Everyone but the 5 people I reserved seats for, I said. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. You didn't make it easier. You made a lie and asked me to breathe inside it. Sarah's eyes flicked to Mom, then Dad, then Jason, looking for a rope to pull. Jason didn't meet her gaze. He stared at the screen where his future mother-in-law spooned potato salad while my name sat on a program 3 hours away. His jaw worked like he was grinding a thought into a shape he could swallow. Enough, Dad said, a bark disguised as leadership. We're not litigating this in front of guests. Alicia, apologize to your sister for the timing. Sarah, you'll apologize for the text, privately. Then we'll celebrate. Life goes on. The old script. The ancient, predictable choreography. Alicia accommodates. Sarah receives, emotes, is absolved. I felt a quiet in me that wasn't emptiness, it was choice. No, I said again, the smallest, cleanest boundary word in the language. We are done with private apologies that erase public harm. You missed my graduation because of a lie told to a crowd. The correction belongs to the crowd. Jason's mother's head tipped, approving. A cousin near the punch table said, that's fair, under his breath, and then louder when he realized he meant it. Mom stepped forward then, fingers nodding and a-nodding. Her voice wobbled. Family, she whispered into the mic, as if the word itself could fix it. She stopped, swallowed. I watched her fight an instinct older than me, smooth it, shush it, let the pretty child have her moment and the reliable one have her diary. She tried again. Alicia is right. The room actually breathed, one big inhale. We missed our daughter's graduation because of a lie. I believed what I wanted to believe because it was easier than questioning the child who always demands our attention. And I didn't double-check with the child who never asks for anything. That's on me. She turned slightly, finding me. I am sorry. My throat tightened at the edges. I nodded, once a receipt, not absolution. Dad looked blindsided, but he adjusted, lawyer brain clicking into a new box. He took the mic like it was a witness stand. It is true, he said, voice clipped. We failed to verify. We prioritized the wrong thing. The word wrong came out like it had to fight through his teeth to get free. I apologize to my daughter for the hurt this caused. We will be issuing a correction to our family group and anyone we misinformed. Gasps. No. But a ripple, surprise, relief, a few self-satisfied nods from relatives who love when the truth finally sits down at the table. All this happened in seconds that felt like a minute and a half of the cleanest air I'd breathed in years. Then came Sarah. So, she said, lips twisting, eyes glossy but hard, you just couldn't stand that today wasn't about you. You know that moment where you see the fork in the road like a diagram? One path is a fight you'll regret, the other is a line you'll respect. I took the line. You made my graduation about you by lying, I said. I made tonight about the truth for exactly 5 minutes. I'm done now. I lifted the remote and blacked out the screen. The wall went back to plain paint. Congratulations on your engagement. I hope your marriage is built on honesty. Good night. I stepped away from the mic. My hands didn't shake. The navy dress whispered against my legs as I moved. People made space without looking like they were making space. A few hands brushed my arm, a squeeze, a pat. Grandma Rose stood from her seat like a queen rising. She pressed a kiss to my cheek and whispered, proud, proud, proud. Jason's mother murmured, well handled, in a tone reserved for well-run operating rooms and well-argued cases. I left before anyone could pull me back into a dance I wasn't dancing anymore. Outside, the air had cooled. Evening unrolled like a deep blue ribbon. My phone buzzed, I let it. Olivia had parked out back like a getaway driver. I slid into the seat and exhaled so fully my spine tingled. "How'd it play?" she asked, eyes on the rear view, scanning for incoming drama. "Like 5 minutes," I said. "Exactly like 5 minutes. We didn't go home right away. We drove to the river and ate greasy fries on a bench while ducks negotiated loudly with each other like a feathery city council. My phone filled with texts I didn't open. Dylan's name popped up with a sun emoji. I answered. He didn't say hello. He said, "Thank you." Then, after a beat, I told them I saw the app. I told them I believed you. Mom's crying in the coat room. Dad's being. Dad. Sarah's furious. "She'll be fine," I said. And I meant it. People accustomed to oxygen learn to breathe again after the windows get opened. That night, sleep came like a tide. No fits. No storms. The next week was ordinary in a way I'd forgotten I loved. I made coffee. I answered emails. I prepped for a video interview with a behavioral health center in Seattle, a place that sounded like a future made of steady bricks. In the quiet hours, the messages finally pulled me back. Mom wrote a letter, not a text. She acknowledged the pattern of favoritism as a family sport, my competence used as an excuse to overlook my needs, the ease of giving the loudest child the megaphone. Dad sent a short message with more weight than his long speeches ever had. "I failed you by mistaking no complaints for no needs. I am sorry." Dylan's texts were tiny lifelines, memes, class updates, a photo of a dog he was walking with the caption, "This guy says hi." Sarah. She sent one line, "You humiliated me." No, I'm sorry. Just the story she's used to, someone else is the villain who stole her script. I typed, deleted, typed again. Finally, I corrected a lie. What you feel is consequence, not humiliation. Then I muted our thread for 30 days. I didn't block her. Boundaries aren't walls, they're fences with gates you control. A week later, the Seattle call came in, an offer. A salary that felt like oxygen. Work that looked like real healing and not just patching. I said yes and felt the word like a door opening to a room with windows on every wall. I told my parents, briefly, by email. "I'm moving in a month. I'm not making this choice to punish you, I'm making it to prioritize me. If you want to be part of the next chapter, it has to be with honesty, respect, and recognition, not just love in name only." Dad replied with practical questions about movers. Mom sent a link to a top 10 things to see in Seattle list that was both sweet and tone-deaf. Dylan wrote, "Spring break in Seattle?" And 3 airplane emojis. That was the only reply that made me grin without thinking. Packing felt like unhooking myself from a net I didn't realize was wrapped around me. Olivia made a ceremony out of silly things, bubble wrapping my thrift store mugs like they were heirlooms. On our last night in that apartment, she said, "Before you go, we're doing the graduation you deserved." In her parents' living room, there was cake and a paper banner and a small crowd that knew how to clap without making it about themselves. Professor Winters showed up with a bound copy of my thesis and notes like gifts. We took pictures where my smile didn't look like a mask, it looked like a mouth that belonged to me. Seattle smelled new, the mix of salt and coffee and rain. The Preston Center felt like an answer I'd been forming in my sleep for years. Dr. Chin treated my ideas like tools, not ornaments. Within months, I wasn't just assisting, I was leading a study on resilience in young adults who grew up in families like mine, homes where attention was currency and one kid got the mint. I watched participants bloom when someone finally asked the right questions. I thought often, may we all become the people we needed when we were small. When Dylan visited for spring break, he ate too much sushi, tripped over his own long legs on a hiking trail, and slept past noon on my couch. On the 3rd day, over pancakes the size of my face, he asked, "Do you think you'll ever," he didn't finish, but I knew the word he meant, forgive. I cut my pancake. "Forgiveness isn't a prize at the end," I said. "It's a path you choose to walk, or not. I'm walking something else right now. It might intersect later. It might not. Either way, I'm good. He nodded, he really heard me. Then came the email from Mom, the subject line a tremble, I am sorry. She didn't ask for a conversation. She didn't explain or defend. She listed the moments she'd minimized. I chose the easy child storm over the quiet child's sun, and she described the counseling she and Dad had started. She said, we want to do the work, even if you never come back. For the first time, it didn't feel like a performance. It felt like the first step of someone finally taking off shoes that hurt but looked good. I brought that email to therapy. My therapist, Dr. Amara, asked, what does your body do when you read it? I sat with the question. My shoulders drop, I said. But I still keep my hand on the door handle. She nodded. Then keep it there, and let your shoulders rest. That's a boundary and a kindness at once. I waited a week. I wrote back one sentence, we can talk Sunday for 30 minutes, no Sarah topics, no pressure for visits, just listening. The call was awkward the way new muscles ache. Mom did most of the talking. Dad said little but sounded smaller, not diminished, just less certain that logic could fix feelings. When we hung up, I didn't feel whole. I felt honest. Sometimes that's better. 2 months later, I threw what I jokingly called it a do-over at graduation in my Seattle apartment, blue and gold streamers, a store-bought cake with my name spelled right. Maria from the research department brought flowers, my neighbor Kira brought a framed copy of my first published paper, Jason, the barista downstairs, not the ex-fiancé, brought espresso martinis that tasted like bad ideas and good times. Halfway through the night, my phone buzzed with a text from Mom, thinking of you. Proud of you. Love. No demands. No tug. Just 3 small stones set carefully on a path. I didn't reply right away. I set the phone face down and let my own life be the loudest thing in the room. Months turned. Seasons softened. The urge to check their weather died down. I heard, eventually, through Dylan, that Sarah's engagement unraveled under the weight of expectations even a spotlight couldn't hold up. She spun a story on social media about betrayal and loyalty and toxic people, then, quieter, she asked Mom for the number of a counselor. I did not gloat. When the house lights finally come up, everyone sees their own face first. That's the point. I don't pretend that one slideshow healed a family. It didn't. It did something more important for me. It ended a season where I argued with people's stories about me and started a season where I simply held up the facts and said, here, look, this is what happened to me. I will act accordingly. Revenge wasn't ruining a party. It was stopping the machine that ran on my silence. If you've been the reliable one, the one who doesn't need, the one whose milestones get rescheduled around other people's fireworks, here's what I learned, you can be kind and still be done. You can be fair and still say no. You can love people and still leave the room where love is distributed like a scarce resource that always runs out before it's your turn. The last time I visited home, months after, the air smelled like cut grass and memory. Grandma Rose pressed a Tupperware of cookies into my hands and said, you taught us something. I said, I taught myself something. Both were true. At dinner, Mom asked me what Seattle was like in the rain. Dad asked about my study. Sarah was quiet and brittle. When she spoke, it was smaller. Not performance small. Just a person finding the bottom of her voice. I didn't perform either. I didn't over-explain or over-give. I left after an hour and a half and texted Dylan a photo of the sunset on the drive back to my hotel. Looks like a peeled orange, he replied. I smiled and tasted citrus in the back of my throat. And here's the final piece, the one I wish I could hand to my past self standing on that stage in front of 5 empty chairs. Your worth doesn't shrink when you stand alone. The chairs were empty. I was not. So was it satisfying? Yes, but not like a slamming door. More like a lock finally clicking from the inside. For 5 minutes, I owned the narrative in the one room that had always belonged to someone else. The projector hummed, the slides marched, and the performance that used to swallow me dissolved in plain light. My sister's face moved through disbelief to anger to calculation, and then, for a flicker, to something that looked almost like recognition. My father, the man who can argue any point into submission, conceded a point no cross-exam could fix. My mother, the steward of harmony, said the one out-of-tune sentence we all needed to hear: "We failed you." I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. Justice isn't gloating, it's balance. And balance, at last, looked like me walking out of that room without apologizing for the weight of my own steps. Karma isn't a lightning strike, it's a ledger. When the math finally gets done out loud, you don't have to collect interest with your fury anymore. You can put down the pen, close the book, and go build something that doesn't require proof to exist. If this story gave you that tight chest, warm hands feeling, like finally being understood, tap like, hit subscribe, and tell me in the comments, what boundary are you ready to draw? And if someone you love needs permission to choose themselves, share this. The next 5 minutes could change their next 5 years.